I've often said that I wished people could realize all their dreams in wealth and fame, and so that they could see that it's not where you're going to find your sense of completion. I can tell you from experience, the effect you have on others is the most valuable currency there is. How will you serve the world? What do they need that your talent can provide? That's all you have to figure out.
Kia ora, friends. It is with a heavy heart that I start this episode by telling those who don't know that sadly Trev passed away in April. Some solace can be found in the fact that Trev, along with his wife and children, made it back to Aotearoa, New Zealand in late January, and therefore he was surrounded by his family and loved ones. This interview was recorded in Japan in October 2020. My sincere condolences to Trev's family and friends, and although it's obviously sad to watch this now, there is some really great moments of Trev telling his story and, well, just being the Trev we knew and loved. Aroa nui.
Hey. Fucking beers are good, eh? Cheeky beer.
I did enjoy the last cheeky beer review, actually.
One of your mates was like, looks like you fellas are just having a beer.
He's a working pussy, that dude, mate.
And you were like, just one.
It's my mate Drabsy, and he's been working on the ski fields all around the world, snowmaking, and he's a good boy. One of the I think I might have talked about him to you. He was a lifty at Port Heights, and he was the only other guy in my neighbourhood that had any interest in skiing. And I used to go around to his house and watch the Blizzard of Bars with Glenn Plake with his big pink mohawk, and watch ski movies with him, amping up for the winter. He was a guy that was always on your shoulder. You got in a scrap or you did anything, he was always on your shoulder. So going to live in Methven, coming out of Brighton, being quite a hard little doer, I got in trouble with rugby teams and farmers and stuff out in Methven. And I'd get in tussles, but Drabsy's right there, right on my side, pulling cuts off me, and always. And
what a leech.
And so he's now got this new job as a biosecurity officer on the boats and cruising around the world on doing that. So, good kid.
Oh, kia ora, friends. Welcome back to Short Stories with RJMC. We are super lucky to have Trev Ponting in the house for part 2. Wanted to say a huge shout out to all the people that watched the first interview we did with Trev. Really awesome of you guys to share it and leave nice comments. It's really appreciated, man. Thanks for supporting it. So we've got part 2 for you. We're going to talk about the seasons ago in Niseko. So welcome back.
The golden era.
Yeah, welcome back, Trev Ponting. Let's just jump straight in. We're filming from Kuchan, Hokkaido. Hokkaido is the northernmost island of Japan. It's one of the snowiest places in the world. Niseko is about 2 hours drive from Sapporo, the big city on the island here. There's 5 million people in the whole island of Hokkaido, and the average snowfall here can be around 15 meters. Yep, that's right, 15 meters. It's incredibly beautiful, and Hokkaido is the food basket of Japan. I've just spent summer here, and one of the great things about it is there is just field upon field upon field as far as you drive of all these different crops, and they all grow like lush and green. I love having the windows down in the car so you can breathe in all the awesome smells of the farms. And the farmers work super hard here in their 6-7 month season of summer to turn crops over, and they do a great job of it. So yeah, Hokkaido's amazing, and we are in Niseko, which is probably the biggest resort definitely in Hokkaido, right?
Yeah, definitely in Hokkaido.
Yeah, and once upon a time it was quite a sleepy little place. Now it is a bustling mecca for shredders and snow lovers from a lot from Asia. We get a lot of customers from Asia here, and people from all over the world, as you'd expect. But Trevor's been coming. I've been coming here for 5 winters. I just love it. But Trevor's been coming here for a while. When was your first season here, Trevor?
First season here is I believe the 95, 96 winter. Came here and basically didn't leave. Snow was just too good. At the time I was travelling around with different team members in a sort of professional team, doing contests and demonstrations around Japan, and I just wanted to figure out a way to stay here in Niseko because it was just the best place to be, and had the most snow and the most consistent snow that I'd ever seen in the world. So
yeah, that's for sure. It's quite amazing here.
And I'm still here.
Great. So excuse me. So
25 years later, I believe, something like that.
It's something like that, mate.
Yeah.
So what did you do to be able to stay? You said to find a way. So how did you find that way, Trev?
Well, in the first place, we were just going back and forth every season, back to New Zealand. So doing the season in Japan and then going home and doing the season in New Zealand and then coming back. And so every year just coming in on a travel visa, and you'd get a 3-month stamp to stay for 90 days. And so we'd stay for 90 days and ride 88 and then move on back to home and come back. So never really had to find a way how to stay and stuff until I figured out that it was going to be my home and wanted to stay, and where I married my wife Ayako and carried on to having my 2 children, and so now I'm on a marriage visa.
Okay. Awesome. And it's 95, 96, like you said, was a long time ago. What was it like back then?
Yeah, well, Niseko was a sleepy little town. The mountain was a lot more empty. Not so many people that from today's standards. I think the tourists and the Australian side of things, I think, made this place a lot more popular and brought a lot more people here. So the town started to flourish with the numbers of skiers and snowboarders coming here.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of resorts around Japan at the same time were going broke and going out of business. But Niseko, with the amount of powder hounds, skiers and snowboarders coming, was one of the mountains that flourished and has managed to go ahead and keep going ahead till this day. So.
Awesome. Now were there many foreigners around in 95, 96, Trev?
There weren't many. For the locals, there was Ross Carty that had a business called No Ask and was the Japanese importer for 540s, which was a New Zealand sponsor of mine at the time,
mm-hmm.
which gave us the connection to contact Ross and for accommodation and help us out. There's also Ross Finlay from NAC, and these guys are running adventure tourism businesses in town,
mm-hmm.
and
to this very day.
Yeah, and still to the day, yeah, they're still doing business in the town. So we had the contact of Ross, and when we first came up here, it was one of our contacts to find accommodation, and Ross was nice enough to let myself and a bunch of us snowboarders to live in his basement at his shop, and his wife Kuni-chan basically fed us and looked after us a lot. She ended up being kind of like our Japanese mum. And yeah, so who else was there back then? Another friend of ours, Tomo, from Pizza Yummies.
Oh yeah.
He would put us up and help us out a bit too.
Yeah, I've met Tomo. He's a great bloke. He's still here, still making pizzas.
Yep.
Hand shaping his own gear, and makes his own surfboards, makes his own snowboards.
Sure thing.
I think Will J actually introduced me to Tomo.
Tomo did a season in '95 with Quentin and I in Luggett, Wanaka, and we would send him and his friend Junji down to the river to fish for trout, and pretty much living with not much money and living off the land a little bit, fishing illegally, and living 6 or 7 people to a flat, so we could afford to live for the season in Monaco.
Yeah.
But he ended up being one of my main photographers for those days, and so we'd go riding and shoot a bunch of photos, and we'd eat at his pizza shop, Pizza Yummies.
Yeah.
Yeah. So cheers to Tomo.
Yeah, shout out to Tomo, you're a legend. What sort of challenges did you face as a foreigner in a town with not many foreigners, and were there challenges in the early days?
Yeah, well, definitely in the early days here, the language barrier was a lot more of a barrier, because the local Japanese people didn't really speak English, and at that stage we were young fellas and we didn't really speak Japanese, so the language barrier is probably the hardest thing to overcome. And yeah, finding accommodations and vehicles and cars and getting everything done was always a challenge.
Yeah, but you managed to do it.
Yeah, but I think quite a few years we stayed with Ross until he started to have his own family, and there wasn't enough room for all of us young snowboarders from New Zealand to keep staying at his house. So I think he helped us find a house for us guys to live in, and we carried on from there.
Where were you living?
I was living in Ross's basement, basically, and when he had...
Is it Harafu?
Yeah, right under Tamashi Bar in Main Street, Harafu.
Yeah, bang smack in the middle.
And then the next season, Ross had his 2 children, and the accommodations were getting pretty tight at his house, so he said he had a shed, corrugated iron shed, where he had stored his rafts from his rafting business.
Yeah.
He said, you can live in there for free if you'd like. No kerosene, no power, minus 18 degrees, hard out, Niseko winter.
Oh mate.
Hard out.
How did you survive that? You must have got something together for heat.
Good down sleeping bag.
Yeah.
And wear your snowball clothes basically to the edge of your bed. Take your boots off, jump into bed, put your feet back into your boots and snap them off the floor because I've frozen to the floor. But we were just doing whatever we could do to live for free.
Yeah.
And live in Niseko Hokkaido to ride the powder. And I think as a young fella, I'd eat a lot from New Zealand, I'd eat a lot of KFC and McDonald's. The first day I walked up to the gondola, there was KFC under the gondola. I think I fell to my knees and looked to the sky and said, I've made it.
Hallelujah. Oh, perfect. So you lived on powder and KFC, mate.
Well, you could ride down, jump in the gondola queue, and send one of the boys in to get a bag of KFC, and jump back on the gondola and go up for another run.
Yeah.
It was ridiculous.
Awesome. How would you describe the riding and the powder? You know, were there different trails? Obviously the lift system would have been different, a little bit different. How did it work in those days? How was it different to
The
now?
lift systems actually very similar to the way they were back then. I think there's only, from the first days I was here, I think there's only really one new lift since those days. And that's be the Swinging Monkey.
Yeah.
And I think they've upgraded the gondola.
Mm-hmm.
It went past its due by date, and I think they couldn't get insurance for the gondola anymore, so they upgraded it to the 7-seater that it is now.
Yep.
Yeah. But
Well, terrain-wise, were you riding different runs then, or was it all for, you know, open slather? Could you go anywhere? Were they quite tight on where you could go? How did it work?
yeah, well, these days in Niseko they have the local rule, which they have open gates, which let you into the backcountry and the side country of the mountain. Back then, there was no local rule, and it was just duck the ropes if you dare. It was loss of pass if you got caught. Japanese people back then generally did what they were told and wouldn't break the rules, so no one rode the powder. So we were some of the first guys to be jumping the ropes and literally ollieing over the ropes and riding the pow. And so therefore myself and the crew I was riding with, we found and named a lot of the first runs of the mountain in the trees, the powder fields. Roy Hawthorne is a very good friend of mine, and was one of the first guys to become to Japan with me. Is the namesake of Roy's Run.
There you go.
And yeah, so yeah, we were jumping over the ropes and going in the trees, and it was just powder for days. We would have between us a few crew. It would be like no one rides Super Ridge during the day. We just save that for the night.
Mm-hmm.
We'd ride Strawberry Fields and Roy's Run in the day, and sometimes off the peak, and we'd ride Super Ridge all night because it'd be fresh as fresh. No one would be in there for the day, and the lights and the light from the night sky would be enough to ride it all night. So yeah, it was Super Ridge for the night, and Roy's and Strawberry Fields for the day, and Aranataki Bowl would be where we'd ride from the early afternoon through to night before it got permanently closed.
Okay.
Haranataki made Niseko Hokkaido, Niseko Harafu, world up there on par with the best places in the world. It was the only terrain on the hill which was world class. It was a sad day when Haranataki got closed, and permanently closed now since those days.
That's the bowl between Hiragashiyama and Harafu, right?
Yeah, between Alpin and Nagashiyama.
Unfortunately, a lot of people have lost their lives in that bowl, right?
Yeah, there's been a few avalanche accidents, and where there has been loss of life in these bowls, and therefore they've closed them for forever.
Is it true? I heard some Japanese children were in there, and an avalanche came from above them, or have I heard wrong?
The main accident, which resulted in the bowls being closed, was a snowshoe guided tour.
Mm-hmm.
They decided to have a picnic in the bottom of Haranataki Bowl, where 2 people lost their lives.
And sad.
Yeah, and so it's been permanently closed since then.
So I assume they were picnicking and an avalanche came down on them and...
They were picnicking in the bottom of the bowl, and a naturally triggered avalanche fell, and the whole crest of the whole bowl came down on them and buried them under about 3 meters of snow.
Oh dear. It is an amazing looking bowl, but yeah, it's well and truly closed these days, ladies and gentlemen, and that's why. So who else was doing these seasons with you? You mentioned Roy, and who else was visiting?
Roy Hawthorne.
Yeah.
Quentin Robbins.
Hey.
Aaron Jameson was one of the junior champions of New Zealand snowboarding, and he started to come along with us.
Great.
I think Dylan Butt and Ollie Brunton had also done a season previous. But for probably 5 or 6 years, 7 years, it would have been Quentin Robbins, myself, and Roy Hawthorne, Aaron Jameson, and Glenn Howe.
Nice.
And
some of the best snowboarders that I've ever seen in New Zealand.
Yep. It was some of the strongest riders from New Zealand, all living here together, all experimenting, learning new tricks into the powder, and it was a great time for innovation and creating new tricks. The young fella Aaron Jameson from New Zealand was one of the first guys that I ever seen on video or in person try rodeos, backside rodeos. I believe was one of the most innovative snowboarders of the day.
Yeah, he's amazing. I was lucky enough to see him snowboarding all the time in Queenstown, mate. He was a regular in the pipe in the parks, and I don't think I've ever seen Aaron Jameson fall over. I was trying to think of it when his name came up somewhere. I don't think I've ever seen him fall over, not once. He's definitely one of the best snowboarders I've ever seen, and he was national champion when I was in Queenstown doing my thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, mate, very, very talented young man and a good dude. And I actually caught up with him not so long ago at the Winter Games in Cadrona, and of course he's got this charging son Rocco, who's just turning into quite the demon himself, which is no surprise with the DNA he has. Sure. between AJ and Debbie. So it's great to see Rocco ripping it, keep shredding, bro.
I was actually lucky enough while I was in hospital to have a Skype call with Debs and Aaron.
Yeah.
Got them out of bed in their PJs and a few stories reminiscing about the old days in Niseko.
Nice.
And it's good to see their son ripping so hard.
He's just a good dude too. He's good. He's fun to be around. I was at the World Championship mini pipe comp. I finally made it to one, and he was there ripping, and all the crew were there. It was a really fun day. I am definitely feel blessed to be a part of that community, and to have done my time in Queenstown and got to know them all, and a pretty amazing bunch of people. Shout outs. Next question. Oh, do you have a favourite story from those days?
Favourite story, or
or a day shredding that was all time, or even just maybe one cliff session. Maybe you guys found a cliff and decided to send it.
Oh, well, we used to ride Haranataki in the night, and it was one night that Roy remembered years later watching me coming down and literally disappearing on every turn, and then coming back out and exploding the snow, and the snow was that deep that you had to dive 2 meters down through the deep to hit the base, so you could push off the base and explode back out of the powder.
Wow.
It was concerningly deep.
Yeah.
And Roy wrote about this in a magazine later, watching 6 foot Trev disappear after every turn. And yeah.
That sounds epic, mate.
Yeah, it was now with the knowledge of avalanche and avalanche conditions, I don't know if I'd be riding these same conditions in these same places these days.
Yeah.
But to do it back then was a fond memory, and we'll keep it as memories.
Yeah, cool. Hey, so I mean, with snow that deep, another question was like, what was the biggest season? Like, was that the same season? It was like the deepest. You know, every now and then you get an epic one.
The deepest seasons would have been in the late 90s.
Yeah.
From mid 90s to the late 90s. Some seasons are getting up to 18 metres of snow. Oof. And you're getting so much snow and storms that were coming in so quick that you'd park your car, go into the bar for a night partying, and come out and the car would be gone. And so you'd scurry off home anticipating a mega day of riding powder.
Yeah.
And I remember coming out of the bar a few times and having to dig into the car to drive home.
Yeah, I've had to do that here.
So
it really dumps here, ladies and gentlemen, and I've had that same thing. We've gone in to celebrate. Christmas seems to be a bit of a typical time for it to happen. We'll be having a Christmas dinner, and you come out, and there'll be like 2 foot of snow outside that wasn't there when you walked in. It's pretty awesome.
You have to have the snow pretty managed here. Yeah, you can go to sleep in your house and literally not be able to get out of your house.
Yeah.
The
Japanese are amazing at dealing with it, aren't they? These huge trucks and snow blowers and machines that deal with it. And they're just an army, and I'm grateful for them every morning getting the roads open, and it's no small feat what they do.
It's been in the later years, in the last 3 or 4 years, as my occupation now is a snow clearer.
Oh, yeah.
And so I drive a snow clearing machine and shift hundreds of cubic meters per day of snow.
Yeah.
Yeah, this has to be done, or houses will be crushed and the town will become
Just shut down. You wouldn't be able to
pretty
move
much
around.
shut the town down.
Yeah. I have to get my little cabin dug out every season, at least once, sometimes 3 times. What was it? 3 years ago? We had epic. Was it 3? Epic snow. I was in Moiwa, and I had to get the house. The house was it was up to the roof, and I had to dig like a moat around. I had to get a guy to come around with a massive machine to dig a moat around my house. It filled in within 3 weeks one time. Had to get him out there again. Yay the Oyuki, big snow.
Yep. Oyuki.
Hey, was there anyone that helped you in those first days? I know you mentioned the guys from NAC and from 540s.
Yeah, I had the contact from my New Zealand sponsor, 540s, and Ross Carty here was the Japanese importer, and so the sponsors in New Zealand gave me his number, and he helped us out a lot, and yeah, Tomo from Pizza Yummies was one of our buddies and helped us out a bit too. And who else would there been? Oh, the mountain manager from Harafu used to hook us up with some free seasons passes and stuff for doing media and magazine work for the hill.
Great.
And
getting them shots.
Yeah.
Happy days. Thank you, those people.
Yeah, it made it all a lot easier to be here. Free passes and free. Yeah, I had my first season off that I went back to New Zealand. A guy named Warwick Walsh also known as Wazza, here in Niseko. He had gone back to he came here for his first season when I was actually back in New Zealand having my first season off, and he had heard about me from the local Japanese crew that I was riding with and friends with. And so on my return back to Niseko, I met Wazza, and he offered to accommodate me at his house and at his little village called Wazza's World, for free accommodation, and he'd supply me with a vehicle and let my friends also stay for a fee, for a monthly fee. And so basically that became the place that pretty much if you were coming from Australia or New Zealand for the season, you in those I guess late 90s, you'd end up living at Wazza's World.
Wazza's World was the place to be.
With myself and Wazza and his family.
Awesome.
And so yeah, it was. He came up to me in the street. It was Trev Ponting, Warwick Wazza Walsh. How you going? I've got something to show you. And he said to me, I knew you were coming this season before you knew you were coming.
It sounds like something Wazza would say.
And I was kind of like, okay, this guy's an interesting dude.
Yeah, he's a legend.
So he goes, jump in the van, I've got something to show you. So we jumped in the van, we ripped off down the street, pulled into a mate's house, got rather deep in a snowbank, grabbed a digger, hooked up the digger onto the front of the van, ripped the front bumper off the van, getting the van out, jumped back in the van, drove to Wazza's World. He jumps out, says, right, this is Wazza's World. That's my house, that's your house, that's my van, that's your van. You bring your mates, they pay $40,000 a month, you stay for free. What say you? I said, we better go for a nighter, snowboarding.
Yeah.
The nighter is here in Harafu. They have lights on the mountain, and Harafu used to be the best nighter in the world class.
Still is, wouldn't it? Just about.
Well,
it's a pretty wicked time.
They've taken a lot of the lights away these days.
Okay.
And I've had this discussion with many professional rider, and about where's the best nighttime riding in the world.
Yeah.
Back then, Niseko, Hokkaido, Harafu was the best in the world. These days, there's other places which are just as good, if better. It was a sad day when they took the lights down from the upper mountain of Harafu, because it literally was the best powder skiing, nighttime powder skiing in the world, and it added a whole other element and to Harafu.
Yeah.
It was just ridiculous. You ride powder all day, go home, have some dinner, and come out and ride all night.
Yeah.
And you could see just as well on the day.
Yeah.
And absolutely ridiculous. And if you were lucky enough to be a part of that crew or part of that time when the King Bell, also known as the Roxy, was open for the nighttime skiing, then that was an era that will never be again. And if you were part of that era,
you scored.
good times.
Hey, well, mate, I obviously missed out on that, but I've had a night here. It was that same deep winter 3 winters ago, and I was riding knee-deep pow in Swinging Monkey. There was just enough light coming through the trees there, and I remember having quite an epiphany, like quite a moment. At one point, I thought I was actually asleep. I thought I was dreaming about snowboarding because it's trippy because it's really dark. So your vision's limited. Because the powder's so deep, you don't feel anything. You're kind of flying. So and I'm just in the zone, letting my board go, and I just remember going, oh wow, this is really cool. Like I was watching myself do it, and then thankfully I hit a bump, and I went and I got a jolt, and I went. And it jolted me back to the now, and I was like, "Oh no, this is really happening." So I slowed down, and but yeah, I don't know how to put it into words, but I had this like transcendent moment that I've never had snowboarding before, and I'll never forget that. It was amazing.
I've had so many people say, "How can you see? How do you see where you're going?" And I just say, use the force.
Yeah. My favourite saying is, there are no trees, only gaps. That works for me.
Yeah.
But you can see quite well.
It was a magical time.
Yeah.
Magical time in the world of skiing and snowboarding. Harafu, nighttime skiing, and riding in those days was something to be remembered. And something to be cherished.
Were there a lot of snowboarders in the late 90s? I mean, it was booming. It started to boom in New Zealand when I started in the mid to late 90s. I came with that wave of, I guess, the second wave of popularity. What about in Niseko? Were there many boarders in those days, or was it mostly skiers? How did it work?
Well, it was there's also always people coming from Sapporo to ski, and there wasn't many people riding the trees and riding the powder, because there's ropes saying don't cross the ropes, or you'd lose your pass if you got caught doing it. And not a lot of Japanese people like to break the rules, so they basically just weren't riding the powder, and we just couldn't resist. It was, you see a whole lot of fresh powder and there's just a little rope saying no. A little ollie and away you go.
So would you have met snowboarders from overseas? Because I know, Risutsu used to have a World Cup at one point in the 90s, and you must have met some...
Risutsu also had the World Cup halfpipe.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
And it was groomed most days, and they had lights on for the evening, so we'd go to Risutsu on the weekends and ride the lit World Cup halfpipe.
Oh, I wish that was still there.
Yeah, it was. That was really good.
Wouldn't that be great?
So.
Did you meet any of the big dogs from overseas?
Yeah, well, for a long time we had the Sapporo Big Air, which would attract an international crew of professional riders, the best professional riders from around the world. And because we were the local boys at the time, and we'd end up hanging out with the local with the pros, and that came to do the Sapporo Big Air, and it was also a large after party that we annually went to every season, and so we'd watch the Sapporo Big Air and then go to party with all the pros afterwards, and so often professional teams and pro riders would come to Japan to film in the special snow and the deep conditions that we have here, and if they did come, we'd often meet them and often hang out with them and often show them around and guide them to the
sweet spots.
Cool. The tree rides, the good jumps. So often if we did get international professional teams to come to the mountain, we'd end up meeting them and hanging out. So it was good times.
Awesome. So that covers a lot of it, mate. Is there anything else you'd like to share with us about Niseko back in the day, or about those seasons you used to do?
All I could say is bring back the lights.
Yeah.
Bring back the lights. Bring back the Nighta.
Yeah.
For once, Harafu was the best Nighta in the world, which is rather a special thing for the Niseko area. But this is no longer the truth. There are other resorts around the world which are just as good a nighter. So I'd love to see the nighter and the lights return to the Hanazono area and the Harafa area, to bring it back to that international status that it used to have.
Yeah. What's the bet they've still got those lights in a warehouse somewhere?
I believe it's just a...
What's the bet?
I believe it's just a switch.
Oh really, the lights are still up, they just don't turn them on?
I believe so, but I'm not sure.
Okay. Oh well, we can only hope, Trev.
We can only hope, yeah.
Hey, well, thanks for sharing those stories, mate. It sounds like a pretty special time, and no wonder you've made this place your home.
Yeah, it was a special time, having the nighttime powder and conditions. It was legendary.
Well, maybe this season, Trev's going to be a little bit like 1996, with unfortunately no tourist visas are available for Japan, and on behalf of Trevor and myself, we're deeply sorry you can't come and ride the powder with us. So we're going to go out of our way to ride as much powder as we can.
I'm sorry. But everyone else,
bad luck. It's going to be one of the good things to come out of this COVID, mate. We get a mountain to ourselves.
I've recently come out of hospital after facing brain surgery and wanting to go back to New Zealand to my friends and family. One of the things I really wanted to do after getting released from hospital. One of the bonuses now is there's no one coming here, and it's a season to look forward to, an El Nino 30-year storm, and we're going to have it to ourselves like it was back in the day. So I decided, enjoy the Japanese summer. I can't go home, I can't leave these surgeons and hospitals, so I'll enjoy the Japanese summer and look forward to this 30-year El Nino storm. It will be a legendary time in snowboarding, and I'm glad to still be here to enjoy it.
Yeah, mate. I look forward to shredding with you too, buddy.
Yeah, it's going to be some good times.
Yoo-hoo.
Cheers to that.
Cheers, mate. All right, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. That's the Niseko edition with Trev Ponting. Thanks for tuning in. Feel free to share this video with everybody. And I don't usually do these things, but I guess I ask you to subscribe to the channel because I'm going to keep doing more of these. Hopefully I go to the World Cup in China, and I've got some friends there that will be happy to chat, so we'll get some more interviews coming up. Anyway, thanks for your time. Best wishes, Trev.
Peace.